Good morning, everyone. Let's begin. My name is Nikki Freeman, and I'm the Director of Education at the Holocaust Memorial Miami Beach. On behalf of the Holocaust Memorial, I am pleased to welcome you to our first program kicking off this year's Holocaust Education Week. I would like to give a special welcome to McNabb Elementary School, Bridge Prep Academy of North Miami Beach, and all other students and teachers who are watching this program right now, live in their classrooms. If you would like, feel free to share your name, your school, where you're from in the chat if you would like. So Holocaust Education Week, this is just the beginning of a series of really amazing educational programs, films, and lectures. Holocaust Education Week is being sponsored by the Florida Department of Education, State of Florida Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture, and the City of Miami Beach Cultural Affairs Program, Cultural Arts Council. I would also like to give a special thank you to the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for all of their support. Today, I am so excited to introduce Karen Becker, who is a senior educator at the National Holocaust Center and Museum in the UK. And today she is presenting The Journey. Karen is joining us all the way from the UK. The National Holocaust Center and Museum was established in 1995, so 27 years ago, by the Smith family, who felt compelled to act because of their Christian faith. The museum has 2 permanent exhibitions, a beautiful memorial garden, and regular survivor speakers who educate about the Holocaust. It is the only British museum exhibition dedicated to teaching younger children about the Holocaust. It also presents a range of Holocaust educational programs that encourage personal responsibility, promote fairness and justice, and challenge learners to take positive action. Today, along with Karen Becker, we will take a life-changing journey through the eyes of Leo, a 10-year-old Jewish boy who is forced to flee from his home in Nazi Germany. Together, we will immerse ourselves in Leo's life to see how the world changed and learn about identity, friendship, and kindness. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Nikki, for having me. It's a real pleasure. I'm going to get started by just putting up now some slides, a little presentation, and introduce you to Leo. And we're going to start out straight away with a diary clip. Now, Leo Stein is his name, and as Nikki has just mentioned, and he's sharing with us what's happening to him and his family and other Jewish families in Germany. I'm just focusing on Germany in this presentation. In the 1930s, in particular in the year 1938. Leo, now how do we know? How do we know all of these things from Leo? Because he's written a diary. So now and then we'll pop up a diary clip where he's sharing with you.
2nd of December 1938. I've just waved goodbye to Mutti and Vati. They look so sad. Mutti couldn't stop crying. It makes me so sad, but I was very brave, just like I promised Vati I would be. Now I'm on a journey. I'm wearing the smart new shirt Mutti made for me, with the fabric we rescued from the shop. I wanted to bring the car Grandma gave me, but Vati told me I could only pack what would fit into my small suitcase. I wish Hannah was with me. I'm sure the people who are taking me would take her too, but Mutti says she's too young to go. They say it's better to be away from all the trouble, but I'd rather be with them at home than safe and alone. Who will be at the end of this journey? Will they be nice to me?
Okay, so there you've got the first glimpse of Leo. We have a key question that we're really working through this morning. Why did Leo have to leave his home in 1938? And to give us a little bit more information, I'm going to show you now one of the diary clips of Leo. Just listen up to what he has to say about himself and what's going on.
Hello, my name is Leo Stein. I'm 10 years old. I live with my mum, Mutti, and my dad, Vati, and my little sister, Hannah. We are a Jewish family. I Our home is in Kaiserstrasse, which is in Berlin, the capital city of Germany. There is a lot going on in our country at the moment. I decided to keep a diary. I wanted to write it all down so that people in the future will know what is happening to us. The people ruling our country are really not very nice at all. They are called Nazis, and their leader is a man called Adolf Hitler. Lots of people seem to like him, but Mutti and Vati think he is very dangerous. He doesn't like the Jews. Because our family is Jewish, they make life difficult for us.
Okay, now, so just to round things off here, who Leo is now, just remembering, I'd like to reach out to all of you, but I'm going to reach out in a different way this morning, not so individually. He's 10 years old. He is German. I want to stress that he's German. He's German. He was born in Germany. His mother tongue is German, and he's a German citizen, just like all of his family. He is just happens to be his religion. He's Jewish. There's many different religions out there, one of them being Jewish. So he's Jewish, but he's also German. And his family, he's got his mother, his father, and his little sister Hannah. She's just a toddler, I think somewhere around 18 months old. And like I said, they live in the capital city. They live in Berlin, busy place, very centrally. And yeah, so that's pretty much it, just going about a normal life. His dad is a tailor. So he's making suits for all kinds of men, perhaps even dresses for women. I don't know, but he makes clothing, and they are just a normal family. They live in just normal and work. They have to work for their living and all of that. So that's a little bit about Leo. Like I've just said here, 1930s, he's German. But why did these three things there? Leo's Jewish, it's the 1930s, and Leo is German. Why those things combined make life kind of difficult for Leo and his family, as well as other people who are Jewish in Germany precisely in this time period. Well, let's look a little bit at what's happening in Germany in 1938. Well, 1938, Adolf Hitler, and his National Socialist German Workers' Party, or as we call them, the Nazis, they've already been in power by this time for 5 whole years. They came to power with Hitler becoming the leader. 1933, the Nazi Party is asked to form a government. And in those first 5 years, you see all kinds of things happening, building up to where we are right now in 1938. I've got some examples right there on the screen. Anti-Jewish laws passed, non-Aryans deprived of citizenship, the right to intermarry, the right to marry someone who isn't Jewish. In other words, non-Aryans or non-Germans is what that means. But what's being spoken about here are really Jews, and that Jews, they have their citizenship, that precious, with the rights that come with being a citizen, that's taken away from them. And they also are told they can't marry someone who's German. That's the main point. If you're Jewish, you can't have a German husband or wife. And people who were already married, someone Jewish and someone German, because that's the way the Nazis spoke, they were being encouraged to even get a divorce, things like that. So in the center, that center photograph there, well, it's not really very large there, but I can tell you, we've translated it into English down below. That is a shop. There's a customer looking in the window, and on that poster, it says, Germans, defend yourselves against Jewish atrocity propaganda. And then a big line at the bottom underlined, buy only at German shops. So in other words, don't buy at Jewish-owned shops. So there is discrimination going on there, where Jewish shopkeepers, Jewish owners of shops and businesses are being just kind of isolated, left to feel a little bit like, what's going on here? What have I done? The Nazis making it very clear, often putting even Nazi uniformed people in front of Jewish businesses, encouraging in the form of bullying or just showing their presence, encouraging the customers to not go in. And then the last thing on the right, that is a newspaper. It was called Der Stürmer, or the attacker. I'll translate it that way. It was a newspaper filled with nothing but anti-Jewish comments and very disrespectful drawings about Jews. We'll come back to this as we move on. There you see it blown up there. Der Stürmer on the left and on the right. One of them on the left or on the right is supposed to be the Jewish person. I am assuming you probably know which one, who's supposed to be Jewish and who not Jewish. The one on the left. Notice the Star of David. And also this is what we call a propaganda drawing. Propaganda was in the newspapers. So these messages that are created to just encourage people to support in a rather forceful way, to encourage people to support your ideas. That's what the Nazis were doing. They're making really making fun of someone Jewish by the way he's drawn, almost like a comic, not like a real person. And putting the Star of David, of course, over the man's head, but yet giving him angel wings and things like that. So that is one thing you would have seen right on the streets in boxes that were put up. They were real proper wooden boxes covered in glass, where a weekly newspaper called Der Stürmer would be available for people to just walk past and read, and it was filled with nothing but anti-Jewish articles and statements. But then there's this side to what's happening in 1938. Here we have on the left, massive rally of people who've come to a place in southern Germany, but in the north part of southern Germany, to listen to Hitler speak and other top Nazi officials, what we call a rally, showing their support and getting very motivated about this cause that they really believe in. And then on the right, I think you probably recognize the man looking down at the soldiers. That's Adolf Hitler speaking to his men, to his soldiers. Hitler, of course, planning to go to war eventually. But I want to just stress how this was a time period where people were very excited. They found it was all very motivating and modern and new, and Hitler promising to bring all kinds of changes and to make life better for Germans after such a long time with economic troubles and having lost the First World War. And who was the person or the group that they decided to blame for Germany's problems? Well, the Jewish people were the ones that were made responsible for all kinds of, like, the financial problems, the weak economy, the unemployment, doing business with people in other countries that harmed Germany and the conditions there in Germany. That sort of thing was going on. We call that propaganda. Here you see those shops there on the right, up close, where again, you see they're buy only at German shops. Was everybody in the community being treated the same? Well, I think to discuss that, perhaps we can talk about these things at the end in the Q&A. German shops, well, on the right, they've got that poster, buy only at German shops. That's not a Jewish-owned business, but on the left, Heitinger, as it says, above the shop windows, you've got the word painted on the windows, Jude or Jude. That's the German word, Jude pronounced, German word for Jew. So singling out a Jewish shopkeeper and pointing that out to the general public as they're walking along, how, the restrictions on Jews. I want to also say, like, the Nazis, in that slide, they might have been talking about all kinds of ways to isolate Jews, and maybe the top officials getting ideas as to what kinds of laws they might put into place. But here we see the general public. This is not, this is just the communities. On a community level, we do not have a law here that you see. You see shopkeepers setting up and just making it clear where their views are. And you have supporters of the Nazis actually going around with paint and brushes, marking Jewish businesses. Right. Anti-Jewish laws, because I've mentioned sort of communal restrictions. Some of them would have been things like people who couldn't sit on communities wouldn't allow Jews to sit on a park bench or to visit a local swimming pool, public swimming pool, and things like that. But then there were the laws, and one of them you see at the top: all Jews must enter either the name Israel or Sarah to their given birth name. Now, and that was already in 1938. These are all actually 1938. Jewish doctors prohibited by law from treating non-Jewish patients. Think about that. If you need medical care and there's not someone there available for you. Jews must have a large red J stamped on their passports. That's a very interesting one. Interesting because this was not an idea that the German Nazi government had. They were approached by other countries bordering Germany, in Europe in general, and gradually further afield as well. But for example, I'll use the example: Switzerland approached the German government saying, we would like to know if someone Jewish comes from Germany and asks for permission to enter our country, comes to the border and shows their passport and wants to enter the country, we'd like to know if they're Jewish. And so what the Nazis started doing was put a red J on any document that was issued to someone Jewish in their country. Think about that from the broader framework of other countries and what is happening at the same time as the Nazis are doing these things to Jews, isolating them, creating laws to frustrate their lives. That was the main thing, frustrate them. What's happening in the international community? I want you to stop and think about that. Jews prohibited from moving freely around Germany. So if you live in the north, you can't just hop on a train and travel freely to the south if you want to go down there to visit or whatever. Jews excluded from cinema, theater, concerts, exhibitions, speeches, and holidays. So it does become law in 1938. Jews are no longer permitted to own a car or hold a driver's license. Now, this was in December 1938. There you have it. There were about 2,000 laws. A Holocaust survivor that I speak with frequently, he always refers in his talk to a book he has that lists nothing but the laws that were created in Germany against Jewish people. So not only do they have their citizenship taken away, Jews they have a different set of laws that only apply to them. The laws and rights and freedoms that a citizen would have, they no longer have, they don't apply to them. Okay, so what do we have next? Well, I'd like to introduce to you, it's another way to learn through Leo what's happening. We have something we call the Journey app. So our exhibition that you see here at the center where I work, we've also made this app called Journey app. And Leo, well, he's walking down the street. Leo has a friend that's called Fritz. Fritz goes to school with him, they're neighbors. They spend a lot of time together, and Fritz is not Jewish, so Fritz is German. And listen to what he says. Fritz, by the way, he has a brother you're going to encounter and some of his friends. So here we go. Sorry for that. Just trying to hit my on button.
Oi, Franz, look who it is. Your brother and his filthy Jew friend. Yeah. Yeah, filthy Jew. Jews out, Jews out, Jews out, Jews out, Jews out.
Leo, are you okay? What happened? It's Joseph and Franz. They shouted at Leo. They called me a dirty Jew.
That's horrible. This kind of thing is happening a lot now. It's terrible.
Do you think it's getting worse?
Definitely. Dad told me that some Jewish people are being really shouted at, and worse.
Okay, well, what you've just seen there, well, that type of an incident, that action, that is clearly, we call it anti-Semitism. We often just say anti-Jewish hate. An example of that, the uniforms that Franz, so Fritz's brother and his friend, they come from the Hitler Youth. There were youth groups for German, in other words, not Jewish. I don't really like talking that way, but that's the way the Nazis spoke. They would refer to Germans and Jewish and the Jews. And the Hitler Youth, that was for all boys. It doesn't matter, from the smallest age, primary school age, straight up to the age of 18. It was expected that they were members of youth groups that, depending on your age, there were certain activities. The main purpose of those was, of course, for this community spirit of Germans against Jews, but also for the boys, really preparing the boys for the day they become soldiers. Because that was, of course, what Hitler wanted to do. And girls, by the way, they also had youth groups. That's same type of thing, just different activities. So the propaganda, sharing propaganda about Jewish people, that is really what daily life was like in Germany for all age groups. And you'll get a little more of that as we move forward now. So you've gone through leader of Germany, Adolf Hitler, and the government. I've shown some examples with the laws that were being created and the singling out, discriminating against Jews, and really spreading anti-Jewish hate. And how it's affecting Leo, we're going to look a little bit more into that as well. We already see and have a clear glimpse that Leo is going to be feeling quite singled out and a little bit made to feel different from the rest of the children, just because of who he is. I always want to stress, just because of who he is and no other reason, because he is Jewish. Now, we have a classroom here in the exhibition where I work, and I take many school groups through here. This is what it looks like. I'm not so sure this is going to work. I'm going to do my best because we had a little bit of a problem earlier. If not, I'll just come back to this page. Let me see if I get this right. I might have shut it down in the internet. And so I don't think it's going to work, but we've got this classroom. Try once more. Doesn't seem to be. I'm really concerned about the time. I don't want to waste time. So I am going to just go back on where we were. And we have a classroom in the journey. We've got, as you see, the little wooden benches. They came from Germany, by the way. We've put loads of different objects in there with a chalkboard, of course, the teacher's desk in the front. Notice the picture, that picture of Adolf Hitler. I'd like you to think about that, maybe when we discuss. I'd like to hear from you, why would there be a classroom in Germany at that time with a picture of a politician? Because that's what Hitler was. He was the leader of the country. He was a politician. Why, remember, teacher standing up front and children looking at the teacher. Chalkboard would be behind the teacher's desk, and a picture of Hitler on the wall. The rest of the room is quite empty. The walls, if I panned around, are just painted like you see here, and not much on the walls. There's maps that would be there, maps that are just showing where Germany is situated in Europe, and the whole idea was to explain to children that Germany is a great country and has a lot of influence in Europe. And there's a lot of what we call ethnic Germans that live in many different countries in Europe. And to bring them all together, Hitler would say in his speeches how they needed more space to live. And so his plan was to move forward, move into Eastern Europe and take over land. That would be part of his plan. It wasn't all quite figured out by 1938, but it was certainly there to a certain extent. What school life is like, I want to focus on that actually more than anything else. Just background information. Teachers in Germany would have been fired Jewish teachers. I'm talking about the everyday normal schools. If you were Jewish and were a teacher in one of those types of schools, well, already in 1936, you would have lost your job, you were fired. A law passed that Jews were not permitted to teach where there were German children. That doesn't mean, though, that Jewish children couldn't attend those schools, those normal everyday schools. In 1936, they still did. Leo, of course, would be one of these children. So the teacher had to support the Nazis, maybe, and strongly encouraged to be a member of the Nazi Party, and agree to teach certain things. That would involve one particular subject called race science or racial science. There's different ways to translate that. Race science. Now, I imagine you don't have a topic like that in school that you learn. Germany does not anymore, but it did during the Nazi era. But when the Second World War ended in 1945, that particular subject was, of course, struck from the curriculum, from learning what teachers would teach. But race science, and Leo, he's going to share that in a diary clip, what that was like. Of course, they had subjects like, very important subjects in the Nazi regime would have been, in their time period, history, biology, geography. These were these subjects, rather, that were considered very important, especially for spreading their main purpose. The whole idea was to take the whole idea of race science into so many different subject areas and always be pointing out the Jews and how important it is that younger children learn that Jews are Germany's problem. They can't be trusted, and things like that. So I think the best is to have Leo share that in a diary clip. Let's put that one up.
Diary, 6th of November 1938. It was terrible at school today. I went to speak to Fritz and he turned his back on me. He said he wasn't allowed to be my friend anymore. How can your best friend suddenly not be your friend at all? I bet it's got something to do with that Mrs. Hindenburg. Then I got my science work back and the teacher had written really horrible comments on it. I tried really hard. Next, I was told to come and stand in front of the class. The teacher told everyone that I was Jewish. She showed them pictures of Jewish people. She pointed to my nose, my ears, my hair, and my chin. Everyone thought it was very funny and laughed. It wasn't funny for me. The teacher said to me, "Now we know for sure that you are a Jew. You should go to the back of the class and should not sit with the other children again." Then she called out Fritz and told the class he was a perfect Aryan, the perfect German. Fritz didn't even look at me. He just stood there with his chest puffed out, grinning from ear to ear. I was very brave at school. When I got home, I went to my room and cried. I won't tell Mutti and Vati in case I get upset. I really, really hate school.
Okay, I'd like to just add to that how, I'll give you an example, a man named Bernard, a Holocaust survivor, who often spoke about these things. He passed away about 18 months ago. And Bernard, although he was at that stage 97, shortly before he passed away, he often spoke about his very unpleasant school experiences in Germany and how he was bullied on a daily basis, be it on the playground. Not in his case, not so much right in the classroom. There were exceptions. There were teachers who actually showed a degree of empathy, in the sense that they might say, I'm going to be speaking about some things that aren't too pleasant right now, so you might like to leave the classroom. That did happen sometimes, but for the most part, teachers had no issue with teaching in a way like what Leo has just shown you. That was as an example of this race science subject, pointing out Leo's physical traits, his hair, his eye color, his ears, his chin, etc. And based upon claiming, the teacher would claim, because of the way Leo looks, we can tell that he's Jewish. And that's another question I would have for you. Is that really so? Can we really tell? I don't think so. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I know I have many Jewish friends, and I wouldn't say that at all. In any case, that's what the Nazis did. And there came a day when a child like Leo, who came to school, although it wasn't very pleasant, would come to school and the teacher would just say, well, Leo and other Jewish children, there's been a law passed that says that Jewish children are no longer permitted to attend school where there are German children. So he would have been kicked out of school, just like so many survivors, again, that I know, like Bernard, as I just mentioned, after so much bullying, or in Bernard's case, he used to love to ride his bicycle to school, and they would German children would puncture his tires or take his schoolwork and just toss it in the air or tear it apart. And many other examples that I could give you. But that was the situation. This is November 1938. Right. We're moving on now. What I prefer to refer to it as a turning point from the 9th to the 10th of November in 1938. And by the way, we're coming up to that. We're just 2 days away. Today is the 7th of November. And what I'm about to describe and show you in some film clips happened 9th to the 10th, so very, very close to where we are right now in the calendar. The Nazis, they attacked Jewish people and property throughout Germany and Austria. But why in particular Germany and Austria? Well, Germany and Austria, they joined together. There's a word for that in German. It's called Anschluss. That was in March 1938, where the two countries came to be as one. And so that's one of the explanations. Another part, it's not mentioned there, it isn't just Germany and Austria where the Night of Broken Glass took place, but also in parts of the country back then, it was known as Czechoslovakia. Of course, today we have Czech Republic and Slovakia. But in parts of that country back then, even a few places in Poland where what you're about to learn about happened. The Germans call this Kristallnacht, which translates loosely to, well, Kristall is the German word for glass or crystal. Nacht, that means night. And we get Night of Broken Glass. As you're older, you might hear it referred to as the November pogrom, which is a very important term to be aware of. And there were attacks on Jewish homes, the businesses, synagogues. I want to stress how many synagogues, hundreds of synagogues completely burned to the ground, well over 1,000, 1,500 or so. In all of these areas I've mentioned that were seriously damaged, but hundreds of them completely burned to the ground. So let's see what we have here. We're coming back now to the app. This is the Journey app again. There you see Leo, he's lying in his bed at night. And let's listen up to what he has to say here.
They know how.
I don't know.
Let's get out of here. Oh, Schatzele. It's okay. The synagogue in our street is burning. The firemen just stood there watching and didn't even try to put out the fire. What is happening?
Leo, is our synagogue on fire too? I don't know.
I overheard my dad tell my mom that groups of SA men caused a lot of damage in the night. I think it was only Jewish shops that were smashed. Peter, Marco, Leo, I'm taking you home. There is no school today.
I'll walk, Mrs. Schmidt. Margot lives that way.
Okay, Leo, go straight home to your mom and tell her school is closed today.
I will. I'll make note of this in my diary. I'll remember this.
Okay. So there you get a glimpse of what it looked like. I'd like to play some actual film footage by from our founding family here at the center, Stephen Smith. Although actually, we'll see, it might be, I've got two things coming. The other one is from a Holocaust survivor herself, a woman named Ruth David. I believe it's first Ruth speaking. Let's listen to Ruth. She's going to share with you what happened right in her own village. And again, this is giving you also an example in a village. The message being, it wasn't just in the big cities. The night of broken glass, it happened cities, towns, villages all over. Here we go.
Terrifying. They got into the house with an axe, a whole lot of men. I was petrified. My sister and I ran down a back staircase into the garage, and Father's car was there. Needless to say, it was not locked. And we jumped into it and stayed there and heard all this noise going on next door. I mean, next door, part of the yard was part of the house. And people didn't know that we were in the garage. We just cowered in the car, hoping nobody would see us. And a man did see us, and he stood in front of the car and said he wouldn't allow anybody near us. We didn't know who it was. He did protect us, I think. And then he went away, and the noise sort of ceased. We went back into the house and saw that, you know, the kitchen floor was inches high in broken glass and crockery, and everywhere else, everything had been damaged. The furniture had been hacked with axes.
Okay, so you get firsthand from a survivor and a witness of what that was like. And even the fact that someone protected, one of the vandals actually protected Ruth and her sister. But for some reason, it shows how complicated things were. But at the same time, he was doing the damage. He was stealing from the family, but he protected these two girls from being injured by the rioters. Lastly is a little film footage, just so you can see something from the time period. It would have been, of course, filmed by Nazis themselves.
Then on the night, the 9th of November 1938, the Nazis went on the most violent rampage to date. It became known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Hundreds and thousands of Jewish homes, businesses and synagogues were broken into and destroyed. This was Germany in 1938. Why, one might ask, is this man picking through the belongings of his home the day after Kristallnacht with over 100 people standing by, and do they all agree with what's happened? Or are they just not courageous enough to help him?
Okay, well, so lastly, I'll just add the fact that all of these attacks against the Jews of all the regions I mentioned, it was all just, they wanted it to look, it was a big propaganda beginning in itself to claim that there was a Nazi official, what set it off, killed in Paris by a Jewish teenager who was very angry about how his parents were treated in Germany, to make a long story short. And he was so angry, he got a gun, he went into the German embassy in Paris, and when he saw they wouldn't listen to him, they were just laughing at him. How could he expect help for his parents? You're just Jewish. He pulled out a gun, he shot the first person he saw. It happened to be a high-level Nazi official. 2 days later, that man died. And the Nazis decided, let's use that as the excuse for this massive turning point. They were looking for an excuse. It was actually a very well-planned attack against the Jewish communities. But they tried to make it look as if it was spontaneous and that all the people of Germany, all the Germans, were so enraged that they went out to express their anger, when in fact it was really planned and orchestrated by the Nazis. But that doesn't mean people didn't join in. The general public was quite happy to join in. There was a lot of theft, and they just burst into homes. That's how having the word Jew on the businesses, that was also quite helpful to know which businesses and which buildings to attack. And they stormed in, they stole what they like, they smashed up what they left behind 84 years ago, don't forget. And then they set what they left behind on fire. The fire departments, they were told, if a Jewish building is on fire and the fire doesn't spread to a non-Jewish building, then just let that burn to the ground. Otherwise, if it looks like it will spread into a German business or a German person's home, then put the fire out, but otherwise let it burn to the ground. There were 91 Jews at least who were killed, and 30,000 Jewish men who were for the very first time sent to concentration camps in Germany. They were in Germany, not in Poland at this stage. And they had actually been set up for criminals originally, and they were now housing Jewish men who eventually, a lot of them would be released on the condition they leave the country. But of course, many of them did die and became very ill, we'll put it that way. So we need one big last focus. What choices do people have at this point? This is really what I really want to focus on, but you needed all of that background information about what was happening in Germany, which led to what we're about to learn about, the choices. Well, if I had you here in the classroom with me, I'd be asking you this, and I would hear things like, well, they could move to another town. So, well, that other town, that might still be in Germany, and all these things that I've described were happening all over Germany. So maybe that wouldn't make a big difference. And gradually people come to the comment, well, they could leave the country. They could go to another country. Well, okay, yes, that's certainly a possibility, but what does that require? What do you need? You're not going on vacation. you're going to stay somewhere for a longer time period, and you don't even know when you'll come back to your home country, or even if you'll come back. So, well, that's again where we need to look at the international community. We have a situation of people, the Jews, being discriminated against, and an international community, not just discriminated, but actually harmed and threatened and very frightened. And you have an international community that's saying things like, well, we have high unemployment, we have a weak economy. And not only that, what will our people say? I'm not so sure they'd be too keen if we allowed additional Jews into our country. About to use a word that we hear a lot in the media today, allow them to come in as refugees, okay? And so this was happening a lot. There's many examples I could give you. Maybe we can talk about that shortly as well in the international community. It led to families like Leo's really considering what do we do? They tried to stay together, tried to get what we call a visa. That's that precious document you need to go and stay, live, and even eventually get a job and stay in another country until it's safe to go back home to your own country. And Leo's parents have really struggled. His dad had been arrested. He was one of those 30,000 men. He's eventually released. And in that time period, though, his wife found out about a program called Kindertransport. Okay? The Kindertransport. Kinder, that's another one of those German words. It means children. And transport, well, that's the same as in English, transport. And like Leo's mother, like a lot of Jewish women back then, they had to make this decision on their own. It's an example of women really stepping forward and making a decision, and which led to the protection of just under, as you see there, 9,354, mostly Jewish children. A program, I'm sitting here in the UK, that was very unique to the UK. It was a program that only Britain participated in. And so Leo's mother found out about this program. It was agreed that he had to quickly pack a suitcase, a 10-year-old, so that's not going to be a very big suitcase, and they only had they didn't have roller cases back then, they had to carry it, so it's going to be a little tiny suitcase. Everything has to fit in there, and he would have been told that he's going on a journey. So normally the parents were saying, you'll be there, you'll have new kinds of experiences. Of course, he had been kicked out of school, so he'd be able to go to school in Britain and all kinds of things and have new experiences here, but no parents. The children were between the ages of 10 to about 17. And they couldn't be older than 17, and they would take this long journey. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. These journeys took place between December 1938 and September 1939. The Nazis made it very clear, if an adult tries to get out of Germany on these transport trains, the train will return back. Those children will not go to their safe place in Britain. So Leo is about to become one of those children. And so there weren't a lot of options. The Kindertransport was one of the few at that time, and very unique because we think about the Evian conference in July 1938, where there were 32 countries that met. This is before Kindertransport, before Night of Broken Glass. 32 countries, including the United States, Britain, France, many other countries, Canada. And they met in France to discuss whether or not they could all agree on allowing a certain number of Jewish refugees into their country. And out of 32 countries, only one said, yes, we will allow an additional 500 refugees, Jewish refugees, into our country. That country, often here with children in Britain, no, I'm sorry to say, it was the Dominican Republic that allowed 500 additional Jewish people into their country. So, was this a difficult decision for Leo's family? Indeed, not an easy, when you think of this choice of a parent to either stay together as a family and not know if you'll be safe, what's going to happen. After all, the Night of Broken Glass made the message very clear to the Jews in Europe, in these countries where this happened: you are not wanted here, you are not welcome here. So there's that side, and being hopeful that maybe you find a way to leave, or that just the problems stop. That was the other hope some people had. Or you take an opportunity for at least some members of your family, children in this case. Hannah, by the way, she stays with her parents, but Leo takes this journey, an incredibly difficult decision, incredibly difficult for many women who found their husbands were in concentration camps, and they had to act quickly because otherwise the place would be gone. Well, here's Leo. The most important thing that Leo left behind, I'm sure you know what that would be, namely his whole family. His whole family left behind. I say it that way because most children who came to Britain, although the program saved their lives, and it really did, and they're very grateful to the British government for that, the British government of the time. However, most of those children never saw their families again. Most of them would become orphans. At the end of the war, they would try to find their parents. There would be an attempt, or the Red Cross would try to assist, and they were nowhere to be found. Their parents had been killed during the Holocaust. So that is the program of the Kindertransport. And I will just stress how unique that is to Britain. We have various memorials for that in Britain. If you ever come to London, you go to Liverpool Street Station, you'll see a very moving sculpture there with many children. Because that particular station in London is where the children would have arrived after their long journey of trains and Nazi guards throughout Germany on the trains with them, keeping them quiet. And then, of course, a ferry bringing them over to Britain, a long journey. And then they would be met most often at Liverpool Street Station by foster families that took care of them. This is a picture of us, so you can see the Holocaust Center and Museum. And we have many sculptures and memorials in our beautiful gardens. There you see a little sculpture to remember Anne Frank. And the one in the back is from a Holocaust survivor who was in hiding for 2 years with his brother. And that's his little, what he called it, hidden childhood. And lastly, our survivor family. How we know all of these things that I've shared with you, so many examples of things happening through, at the core of everything we do, our survivor family of people who to this day are still speaking with thousands of children a year. So that's pretty much it from me. If there's any questions, I've just hit like 2 minutes to the hour, I think. Any questions for me about this program, or anything for that matter? I can stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Becker. That was a fabulous presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. I encourage students to ask questions as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Did Leo survive?
Leo survived. Okay. I think I need to tell you now a little bit about Leo. I am often asked that question. If you were here at the exhibition, at the very end of the exhibition, I would have shared with you, Leo is actually what we call a composite character. Now, that in other words, Leo he's not a real person. Leo, though, his story is 100% true. You see again, many of the survivors, a picture right behind me on the wall. We have created Leo through the survivor stories, the testimonies of a variety of Holocaust survivors. I can tell you at each different point in Leo's, in that presentation, I could tell you which survivors the experiences, like when he talks about the night of broken glass, or in the classroom, or the friendship with Fritz. I can mention to you from the survivor testimonies. We put all that together, and out of that comes Leo. But I want to stress it is all true. Okay.
We have another question in the chat. Can you tell us about the Nazi logo and what it symbolized?
The Nazi logo. Yes, the swastika, as it's called, or Hakenkreuz, as they'd call it in German. Like most things about the Nazis, it's not something they designed themselves and created themselves. They borrowed most of their ideas from other cultures or other time periods in history, and then they did even more brutal things and evil things with a lot of ideas. That Nazi logo, well, that actually is originally came from India. They've turned it a little bit. They had a little bit of a fondness for mythology and following gods and sun and things like that. And so they've taken that symbol as a sign of strength in their interpretation. And they turned it a tiny bit. If you look at the original, that's the whole idea behind it, if that helps. The Nazi, I see some questions coming up there. Was there one particular? I'll let you, Nikki, if you just tell me which ones I should be answering.
All of them.
Okay.
How many people survived the Holocaust?
Oh, how many people survived the Holocaust? That's a very good question.
A difficult question.
It's a difficult question. I don't think to this day we have an accurate number, but if you look at, let me just give an example of one particular country. We know of in Poland. Poland had a very large number of Jews, around 3 million. And if you map it out from, say, 1933, when Hitler came to power, 3 million, 1939, when the Second World War began with the invasion of Poland in September 1939, and 1945, at the end of the war, by that time there were only 45,000. But again, this might not be accurate, and new information comes out. But what we have, at least in our Holocaust exhibition, is 45,000. That could be a combination of Jews that just decided, I'm getting out of Poland, those who survived, but still it would have been very small. I'm afraid I don't really have an accurate number. I'd hate to say something inaccurate. I can just speak about an individual country. I can tell you, or does anyone want to put in the chat box, you're aware of how many Jews were murdered, approximate number? And that's my first question. And my second question, of that number, do you know about how many were children? Those are two key figures I think important to be aware of. If anybody's got an idea.
To answer one question, from my understanding, scholars think about 3.5 million Jews survived the Holocaust.
So,
but of course, it's very difficult
yeah.
to get to that number.
It's very difficult to get to that number. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that sounds okay. So anybody know about the murdered Jews and how many were children? Otherwise, I'll just say it. Don't see anything coming. So it was about 6 million Jews. It's just approximate 6 million Jews. And of the 6 million, 1.5 million were children. So children who had no chance to carry out their childhood. They were not, they couldn't be put to use to do hard labor, do lots of work and things like that. And sadly, they were killed. And here at my exhibition where I work, the exhibition where I work, we have in our memorial gardens, we have this, what's growing now to a massive pile of stones. I remember when I first started working here, looking at photographs from when the center was founded 27 years ago, there were only 2 stones on that pile. We now have about, I'd say, 450,000. It's the memorial to the children of the Holocaust, the children who did not survive. And we invite our visitors to place a stone on that giant, what's now a giant pile of stones, to remember each stone there to remember one of those 1.5 million children. And it's quite a precious part of the day to any visit here at our center. Those children who just had absolutely no chance of survival, and not only that, no one there left to even remember them in most cases. So it's a very precious, something very precious to us here at the center.
We have one question from Miss Cook's class. What does the Nazi salute mean or represent?
Okay. You know, they would, that classic, they would say Heil Hitler or Hail to Hitler. That's what that would mean. It was, again, it was just a simple greeting, Emily. If you go back to ancient Rome, the ancient Romans did the exact same thing. The Nazis, of course, they looked upon themselves as this super great, impressive empire. They were an empire, and known in German as the Dritte Reich, and the Third Empire. And so that's really all it is. It's just a greeting. And it was also considered a form of respect toward Hitler. And it would be noted if you did not raise your right arm in salute of Hitler and praising Hitler, then you never knew. There might be someone who made note of that and pointed that out to others of influence. Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you. Okay, if not, I think we will conclude this program. Thank you, Karen Becker, so much for presenting, and thank you to everyone.
I hope it was helpful, and it's been a real pleasure. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yes. This has been so great. And so I encourage everyone in the audience. So this is the first program for Holocaust Education Week. It's going on all week. And I hope you join us for more. We have another program at 1 p.m. today. It's My Survivor, and it's a documentary, and we will be with the senior executive producer talking about the film. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a good day.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.